Hey, are you on your mic?
Yeah? Do I sound poopy?
Is it very far away?
What?
Oh wow. That was awesome. That's going in the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am David Baxter, your host, and I don't have something funny to say, but this is Gary Voigt. He's my co-host, and he's actually coming to visit me this week. I'm very excited. We're having a leadership conference. I don't know if
You
you
should
call it
be. I'm pretty
conference.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With all of our leadership people at Big Pixel, they're all coming to visit me, and I get to meet Siwa, who's been on this podcast once, right? Yes. Siwa's been
Yes,
on it
he was
once.
on once.
I get to meet him in person for the very first time.
And
So
during his
anyway,
podcast episode, he mentioned that his interview with you was done over Zoom and he was wearing a nice dress shirt and just sweatpants.
yeah, I
But he
believe it.
was
I think that's his normal attire. Um, I think Juan was wearing a onesie during his interview with me.
Juan always wears onesies.
I think he
Different
wears a onesie
weird
pretty regularly.
like anime characters and animals and stuff.
So the big news of the week is the chief twit, Elon Musk has taken over,
You want to
and
be Canadian?
apparently he has been really, even in his first 72 hours, been like really changing things. He changed their homepage. He
I did
is
not see that. I know
if you have to be
he got
logged
rid of
out.
75% of the executive board
Yep,
or
he
the
got
executive
dropped all of
members.
them, and then he brought in a
Anybody
bunch
who
of.
was yeah, I think anybody who was against him or pushing for the lawsuit against the sale got let go as soon as he took over.
Which
So
is interesting. I was hearing a thing, and they were like, "Hey, they fired that lawyer, but that lawyer clearly is very talented. Why would you drop that lawyer?" But he's just nope.
because she was the one that
She
had the
won.
suit against him. Yeah.
Yeah, she beat him pretty handily. Anyway, so yeah, he's making some changes, and I think from what I've heard, and I don't know anything about the corporate structure of Twitter, but it sounded like they really needed it. Like someone did an equivalent. I don't know. They compared WhatsApp, which again is a very different app. WhatsApp is a private communication tool mainly used in Asia and overseas. America, some people use it, but it's not as huge. In other parts of the world, it's like the app. But when
It's
WhatsApp
the
was
Facebook
private,
and yeah.
when it was private before Facebook or Meta, excuse me, bought it, they compared it when they had 250 million users, which is what Twitter has. They had 50 employees. Twitter, 250 million users, has 7,500 employees. Now, they are very different businesses, so you would need more people for content moderation and whatnot, no question. But that gives you a pretty stark, I mean, that's a lot of people. It's very heavy on the head count. And apparently
Now
they
is
have,
that because they have offices around the world, and so
I don't know.
it's
I
not
mean,
all at one central office?
a
I
lot
don't
of
know
it
the corporate
is,
structure of Twitter either, so I can't really
well, they
speak.
have a lot of engineers, which is one of the things I heard that Elon is making them do is submit to them the code you've written in the last 30 days, and they're going to be evaluated. And they're trying to see who's actually coding and who is not. And that's how they're going to fire some people. I mean,
It's the equivalent of like new middle management coming into just any corporation and making changes to try to impress his boss. But at the
well, but
same time,
they
he's his
need
own
it.
boss, so this is
Yeah.
stupid. Like
I think it's necessary. I don't know about his tactics.
he's just shaking trees.
He's shaking trees. He's trying to make a name, and I call that peeing in the sandbox. But I think it needs it. I think Twitter has, as a business, has been a very lackluster business for a very long time, and I think that whether it's Elon or somebody else, they need to shake something up because they're not growing the way they should be. They're very stagnant. They haven't
You're
released any major
speaking to it
projects.
as a tech company and their profit and
Yeah,
what they're actually
they've never profit.
So
There is no
I just want to
profit.
make sure that's separated from everybody's emotional response to what's changing in Twitter.
Sure, and it's going to
That's
be
a different
raw
beast.
and
Yeah.
brutal and quick and ugly, and none of that's going to be easy. But I think it needed to happen if Twitter is going to be a real business. Now, I'm curious as to what and I'll never know the answer to this, but what is his goal with this purchase? Is his goal with this purchase to really make it into a big moneymaker? Because he's already rich. And I was reading a thing on The Verge, of course, that was saying there's no win here, right? You put a rocket into space, into Mars or whatever, it's huge. It's amazing. Everyone congratulates you and says you're amazing. You change the world and make electric cars.
Humanity. Yeah.
It benefits humanity.
Benefits humanity.
You change the car infrastructure and make electric cars cool. Everyone is amazed. You get tons of accolades, and humanity is changed. Twitter, no matter whether he does well or does poorly here, no one cares. Not really, not in a legacy sort of way. You know what I'm saying? It's like a weird purchase for him. You've got
I think he was forced to do it because of the comments that he made previous, and the fact that when Elon tweets something related to purchases in the billions, taking over companies, stock markets react, investments change, there's a lot of risk for a lot of, big players to lose a lot of money or gain a lot of money. And when then he backs out and was like, oh, maybe not, then his feet are held to the fire.
Well, but he signed the paperwork.
Like now he had to, but he had to.
Why? Just because if I say I'm Elon Musk and I say
he was legally forced to buy Twitter.
Well, he was, but that was because he signed the document, then tried to go. I'm not saying, but what made him originally sign that document? What was his goal? What does he want? I know he loves Twitter. He's one of their biggest acolytes, right? Him and Trump probably are the number 1 and 2 twit people. I don't know what you call them. Twitters? I don't know.
Trolls.
Trolls. I don't know. I'm just curious. He's a very smart guy. He's a nut job, no question. But he's a very smart guy, and he has a lot of very smart people working for him. So I'm curious what they want out of this. And only time will tell that.
It's hard to separate what, I guess, if he has some sort of plan for it versus just his ego. Because coming into it, it just seems like it's all ego. It's like, I can buy it. I can do whatever I want with it because it's mine now, and I'm going to, and you're not going to stop me.
Well, I mean, there is some truth to that.
There's truth to that, but I'm just saying it seems like when you're comparing how he's going to change Twitter to be a more profitable business versus how he's going to change Twitter just because he can and wants to for his ego.
It reminds me
different paths.
So I'm watching this show. Have you seen this show, Welcome to Wrexham? Have you heard of this?
That's the one with Ryan Reynolds and the guy from Sunny in Philadelphia.
Rob McElhenney,
like a soccer team or a football team.
Yep. So
I've just seen previews. I've not.
It's very cool. So for those who've never heard of it, the show doesn't matter. I'll get to my point in a second. But it's these guys, very rich, very powerful, very successful guys, decided they wanted to buy a Welsh, not English, a Welsh soccer team. And it's got this really storied history. It's a very small team. It hasn't done very well in the last 15, 20 years, but it's a very old team. It's one of the oldest professional sports teams in the world. And it's got a very cool history. And these guys come in and they decide they want to buy it. Okay. And here's my point. These guys come in here, and now this is a TV show, so of course it's skewed. But it is very clear that these guys really loved the story of the town plus the team. And they wanted to, they're throwing lots of their own personal money, right? This is their money. Now, it helps that Ryan Reynolds owns Aviation Gen, who is just a fountain of cash. But they come in there spending millions of dollars on a team that's consistently losing, even after they buy it. That's what's funny about the show, is they're throwing all this money, getting all these great players and stuff, and they still are losing. And it's and to watch their reaction to it. But these guys love this thing. At least it seems that way. Again, it's a TV show. But they're coming in there and they really want to make it better. That seems apparent. When you see Elon coming in, I have not gotten the feeling he wants to make it better. Does that make sense?
No.
Like he's scaring everybody to death before he walks in the door. I'm going to knock out 75% of the workforce. Even if that's necessary, wow, what a weird way of showing leadership. Or lack of.
What a weird way to try to retain any of these good engineers.
Sure. I mean, there's some brilliant people who work at Twitter, and do they want to work for you now? Because I'm pretty sure if I'm a brilliant engineer at Twitter, I could also be a brilliant engineer at Google or Meta or any of these places, right? I'm a brilliant engineer. Why would I want to stay in that kind of hostile environment? I don't understand it. It's a weird leadership choice. And I guess people just, the one thing I will say, and it's another parallel to the show, because Ryan Reynolds, and I'll use him, Rob McElhenney is a TV star. Ryan Reynolds is a massive movie star, right? Big difference. When he walks in the room, no one's looking at Rob. And that's one of the ongoing jokes as well. But when he walks into the room, that star power is intense. I mean, there's no hiding that. He walks in, there's a crowd. And everyone, even like when they went to visit an away game, they went to the town and they went and visited. And all of the opposing team people are trying to get pictures of Ryan Reynolds, the owner of their opponent. And that's just his star. And I think Elon carries probably even more, right? I mean, Ryan Reynolds versus Elon, not the same thing, I know. But when Elon walks in the room, there's power there just by the nature of his personality, the fact that he's stupid rich, the fact that he's a celebrity. People want to be around that. That's America, right? It's good or bad. Celebrity brings power and people want to be around that. What's he going to do, right? They want to see that. It's not necessarily right, but you can see it in that show. It's pretty interesting, the parallels there.
So, planning for progress, the most boring topic ever on a podcast about startups. I'm
already sleeping.
Businesses. Yes. Nobody wants to have to be put through this. Well, if you do, then you're a business nerd, and I think maybe there's a little bit of business nerd inside David here, but
somewhere.
How does a startup or small business progress and grow without a plan? I'm not sure, because I'm not the kind of business plan guy. If someone told me to write my business plan for the next 5 years, I would procrastinate as long as possible and then find a template online and just change some names and numbers. But I have no
Perfect.
idea.
That would do very well. I think if you are a business owner without a plan, you're probably a freelancer.
Well, yeah, there you go. I was.
I'm just saying, if you're going at it and you hate that kind of stuff, then you will never outgrow yourself, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, freelancers are great. We use them all the time. But you're not running a business. You're just filling your own bucket. And you'll probably be very good. You know, if you're good at your job, you can fill that bucket. But if your plan is to grow a company, you have to plan. Dave Ramsey has the quote, the difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. And I love that. I've always thought that was a pretty cool. One's practical, one's just kind of, ooh. And I think that's true.
Is that his quote, or is he quoting someone else's quote? And you're just
who knows? Yeah, I don't know. We could be 6 deep by that point. Dave Ramsey loves to quote other people, so he very well could be quoting someone else in that. But I got it from him, so ching.
That's another one of those office moments when Michael Scott writes a quote from someone else and then quotes the quote, the Wayne Gretzky
nice.
one. Yeah. But so my point being that a lot of the startups and small businesses, even the larger businesses, the CEOs that we've talked to lately, a lot of them have a passion behind their idea to start the business. And that passion ignites the idea that, okay, I'm going to get going. I'm going to move this as far as I can. I'm going to do the hard work, the planning and the tracking and, trying to make some sort of 5-year goal or even just 1-year goal or quarterly goals. That might take some of the passion and the fun out of the idea, but it is a necessary step, I think, in order to direct and drive your growth so you have something to shoot for. Like, I guess a basic thing would be, okay, if we're just going to go step by step, let's say I'm selling something. After I sell 100 of them, then I'll have enough money made to increase my production. And then I could put a little bit of that extra money into marketing more, so then I could sell more. And then that should lead into 200 and then 300. So that's at least a little bit of a plan.
I think you're doing it backwards. You're doing it backwards. I think, and this isn't coming from me, but I agree with this. If you want a successful business, you don't start from where I am now and where I want to, and the steps I need to be where I want to go, my next milestone. It's counterintuitive. What you want to do, man, my hands are huge in the camera. Whoa, sorry. What you want to do is think 10 years from now. Okay.
That was my next point. Yeah.
10 years. Yeah. Well, you'll get there. 10 years from now, you throw out a number. It's totally fictional. I mean, don't throw out $1 billion, right? That's stupid. But it's not a real number that You
billion
probably nice
dollars.
a reasonable number. Let's just pick. Let's say you do $1 million now. Let's say in 10 years you want to do 20 million. Okay, okay. How do you get to 20 million? Now you go backwards. That's what planning
Yeah.
is about. And so,
What
okay,
is the
if I
process
want
and
to do that
path
in
to scale
10,
that? Yeah.
so I need to know what does that company look like? If I'm doing $20 million, I'm at a million now, and I'm doing 20 million in 10 years. What do I need in terms of staff? Not who, important, not who, what. So grab a whiteboard, piece of paper, whatever, start drawing boxes. Well, if I'm doing 20 million, I know what 1 million looks like. So, it takes 1,000 widgets that I have to sell to make $1 million. Okay, so if I'm making 20 million, then probably I need not just 20,000. I probably need more like 30,000 because things are going to change. Let's just make that up. Now I need 30,000. Okay, well, gosh, that means I'm going to need this person, this person, this person. I'm going to need a sales guy because I got to be able to sell a lot of widgets, and then I've got to be able to do finance. I need to be able to do the operations. I need to be able to have project managers. How many project managers do I need? These are the questions you ask, and draw all these boxes. It's like you're drawing your little uh, organization chart, right? You draw it, and it's boxes. You don't put people's names in there because you don't have a clue who they are, but it gives you an idea. Oh, whoa, this is the structure I need for in 10 years. Again, it's all fictional, but it starts the process. Now back
Yeah.
up 5
That would
years.
go to what I was going to say is the big picture type of planning where you pick something like a 5 or 10 year goal for the actual like either profit or revenue. You pick one thing that you want to focus on and then move backwards from there and how you need to increase from today to get there. So yeah, that is the big picture planning that I think is
So
more important than the next step planning.
if you go backwards, you go 10, 5, 3, 1. That's just a lot of this comes from C12, of course. But when you do that, because now it gets real. Like when you get down to 12 months, whoa, that's real.
Now you're going to be
I
held
know what I'm at
accountable for
now.
actually making plans that you're going to follow through with.
Yeah. And so, like for us, when we did our planning a year ago, we're doing planning again, like I mentioned this week. A year ago, we did a 5 year plan, we did a 10-year plan, and then we went backwards. And we started talking about, okay, in 5 years, I can't remember the exact number. I really don't. I think after 3 years, so we were right at, what was it? A million something, a little over a million. And we said, okay, next year to hit our goals, we have to hit 2 million. That was this year, right now. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not going to hit that. Economies are weird, right? We're going to have a good year, but it's not going to be 2 million. So that we're already off, but that's fine. That's why we replan every year. But we set this goal to say, okay, what do we do to get to 2 million? Okay, well, that means we're going to need, I think it was like 3 devs to hit that much, that much more revenue, and maybe that's much, but we'd have another project manager, maybe 2 devs, something like that. And okay, so that means we need to be on the lookout for that. We need to be on the lookout for these kinds of projects. What projects worked? What kind of didn't work, right? This is how you plan. You get really in the weeds, and don't do this alone. There's a key point.
Yeah,
You're going to be
you definitely
planning.
need feedback and input from other people, even if they're not, the highest level people, but if they're people within the departments that are going to need this kind of planning, yeah, at least get some input for sure.
Yeah, and if it's just you, that's fine. But it's all in a vacuum. These numbers are going to be weird and they're amorphous. If you're not getting feedback, if you're too small, you're a 1 man, 2 man shop. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Still, you should plan. But the numbers are going to be weird because it's just you, and you're not. Especially if you're like not breaking even right now. You're a brand new company. You're just trying to get up and running. This is all. What I would say then is probably you need to start focusing on visions and mission, vision, mission, core values, those kind of things, so you have something to aim at. That's a different conversation. Um, but I think that's really a critical part is doing this planning. It's painful. It is. I hate it. I enjoy seeing everybody, but
I guess I would say encourage the planning part to be a little bit more fun than it might come across, because at least I know we had fun when we did it. So
mhm.
maybe we'll have fun again this year. But what in these attempts at planning, even prior to our team being as big as it is now, when you were smaller, were there key things that you thought you would try or advice that you took, that things that worked, things that didn't work, things that seemed a little like over ambitious or like you see a lot of like the KPIs and scorecards and track your progress and then be on
Yeah.
trend for indicators in the future. And like a lot of that sounds good and it looks cool. Like, if you're logging into a dashboard that shows all the graphs and numbers and charts and everything. But if you're not deciphering that information, or if you don't have enough of the data that's actually going to predict more than just a couple months out, I mean, is that stuff really necessary for planning, or is that more of like a sales tool for just, steadying growth at a short-term level?
So we didn't do planning for years and years. Even when I had employees, I didn't plan. I probably started planning 2 or 3 years ago, and I only brought other people. So some of this is learned from my mistakes, honestly, but I didn't bring other people into it until last year. I mean, I'd casually talk about things, but I didn't do a leadership thing until last year. So if you're in survival mode, and what I mean by survival mode is you don't know if your business is going to be around in a month or two, that's kind of a different world, right? Your job is to just stay alive. And that's fine. Every company goes through that. Very few companies start and then just kill it, right? That it's a slow process. And if you're in that early stages, like I mentioned before, the more critical part is to focus on who you are, so that while you're in survival mode, you don't get off the rails and you become a different company on accident. That, like, if you start taking jobs because they start making you more money, but you're going to be miserable, and that's the path you start going down just to keep yourself
That
afloat.
happens a lot.
It does. And that's because they're not planning. But the planning is different. The planning at that stage is, who am I? What am I really trying to build here? That's where the mission statement and the core values and all that come from. Who am I? What do I want to be doing in 5 years? It's like, how do I stay alive without compromising who I am? And I'm not talking about like compromising your morals and stuff. I'm talking about compromising what you want to do. When you wrote this idea down on a napkin, or told your spouse about it, or got excited about it the very first part, you had an idea in your head. And then when the rubber meets the road and that idea meets lack of clients and it's hard, and you're in the slog, right? Which we've talked about many times. Don't lose that vision on accident. If you're going to change. That's fine. Pivoting's great, but do it on purpose. Don't do it on accident. And that's what I mean. So if you're in that stage, plan that way. If you are to the point where I can make a plan for, I should be around in another year, right? Big Pixel should be around. Now, we're to the point, and this is different than all my other C12 guys. Well, not all of them, but most of them. Most of them have been around for 50 years, your family business, that kind of thing. But my business is mine. I started it. It's going to be 10 years old in March. And I don't know if it will be around in a year, right? The only way I do know it'll be around the year is if we make it happen. I don't have a flood of clients that will keep this business going and forever. Like a lot of companies do when they have thousands of clients built up over 50 plus years. We really think about a quarter at a time, because that's generally, our clients don't sign year-long contracts generally.
Fast and furious.
It is scary. It's like, hey, how are you for the rest of the year? I'm fine the rest of the year. How are you next March? I don't know. No idea.
We're gonna be fine next March.
We're gonna be great, right? I mean, but and that's a fun part of leadership, right? Because I know that our company, my job is to sales and strategy and all that kind of stuff. I know that traditionally we have been fine. God has kept us going for 10 years. Does that mean I know what's happening 6 months from now? No, absolutely not. But I cannot make it sound scary for any of my employees, right? Especially new ones who don't know who I am.
Right.
They don't know.
And you have to plan,
right?
as if it is all going to go to plan.
Yeah, I mean, we hire and we say, hey, when I hire you, X person, doesn't matter the role. If I'm hiring you full time, my goal is to keep you employed for at least 1 year. That is my goal. That is my promise to you, that I will do whatever I can to keep you employed for 1 year. Now, if the world implodes, all bets are off. But I am going to do everything I can. I'm not hiring you. Like, we've had it several times over our life that we hired a guy for a project and that project never took off. The client didn't, ran out of money, couldn't raise the money, whatever. They had made promises to us, and then we find out, nope, that's not going to happen. And we've kept those employees anyways. Now, that's a tribute not to me. That's a tribute to our team, because that affects everyone. Bonuses, everything's affected when we have to keep someone when we don't have work for them. So, and they're all for it. They're all like, yeah, you're awesome. We want to keep you. And we're going to sacrifice ourselves to do that. That's a big deal for our team. And they should all be commended for that. Because we've done that a few times over our lifespan. And that's just part of it. So, sorry, I've gone way off into the weeds there, but I think those are all really important things when it comes to planning. When you're hiring someone, how are you going to pay for that person for a year when you only can forecast a month, 2,
that's
3
also,
months, right?
like you said, part of planning. Just on a project level, if you see something coming and you don't want to get caught off guard or understaffed where you can't fill an empty role for that project that you need to, so you start looking ahead of time. And like you said, we end up hiring a contractor based on a project. Then whether that project goes or doesn't go is, we'll see. But you still owe
You
it
have
to that employee that you promised the 1 year. So we make it work. But
you have it on your list here. These are the boring parts of planning, but scorecards, KPIs, tracking versus planning. I'm going to lump those all together.
okay,
They're all super important, and we are really bad at it. Yeah, we want to get good at it, but man, that's hard.
we
And it
planned on
requires.
doing the scorecards.
We did,
We
and
just did not
we
implement
came
the
up
thing.
with full scorecards for developers and project
Yeah,
managers, and even Gary. We said designers, which is Gary, and Gary had a scorecard. How
I
many
get to score
scorecards did you turn in
myself.
last year?
Well, I mean, I
Yeah, I
turn them
mean,
into myself, so I do it every week.
so you're 100%.
It's aces, 100% nonstop.
It is, but and that's something we are going to push really hard on again when we plan this week, because scorecards are important. Here's the thing that every business owner will tell you: you cannot improve what you do not track, and that is 1,000% true. Your
Yeah,
business, my business, every business has weak points, has things that they don't do particularly well, and they have things that they do really, really well, and that's probably why you're still in business. But the key point of this is if you're not trying to improve your weaknesses, they're never going to they don't get better by accident. And the way you track them when you're talking about people, a good way is scorecards. You can look that up. There's a million different ways to do it. But basically, the gist is these are the 5 things or 3 to 5 things that I think you, X person, should do to do your job. And if you don't, you get dinged, right? And every week you get a scorecard or a month, or there's a lot of ways to do this. You turn in your scorecard. And then here's the fun part for me. There has to be bite to it. I see out of a 5-point scorecard, you got a 4 consistently for the last 3 months. What's that bite? Bonus is smaller. Pay is less. Something, right? Because you didn't do, these are the 5 things that you're supposed to do, and you didn't do them. That is like poison to me. I hate that so much because I'm always scared, and my devs know this. I am scared to death of my own employees, not because they're bad people; they're amazing people. But I know in my world they can get up and leave and find another job in about 3 seconds flat. They all know that. So I am scared to ever go, less bonus for you. It
yeah.
scares me to death.
It's definitely a weird predicament to be in.
But they
To
didn't do
say
their
the least.
job. Like you're objectively looking at this, right? You did not do your job.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
say you're supposed to check in your code every day. I'm just making one up. That's your job as a developer. You need to check in your code every single day before you head out. And you don't do that. And your project manager is calling you on it and you're still not doing that. And you didn't do your job. So it's tough. It's tough. But it's worth doing.
and
Let me get back to it. It's worth doing because that's how you
it is. And I think a lot of the items that you would put on a scorecard or items that you would track, as long as they're very, I guess, transparent to both employee and employer, and the responsibility for each of these tasks or whatever is just clear and open, and there's nothing related to any kind of personal or any kind of emotional response to what your job is. Like, in other words, you can't say like, I thought you'd just be better or work smarter or faster. You're not as good as you think you are. Like, as long as it's nothing like that, nothing that's going to actually impede their performance based on how you feel about them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
I
key
think
point.
there's a scorecard is like, yes, you need to do task A at this time, every single week or month. And task A is something, as simple as checking your code or just, writing out how many hours you spent per project on what project or anything like that. So
It needs to be yes and no questions. That's really what it boils down to. Did you do this? Yes or no? Because if it's anything, did you dress stylishly? That's a stupid one, but it proves the point, right? What's your definition of stylish? Right?
yeah,
Oh, that's
okay.
that's purely opinion, right? But did you check in your code? I can look and see if you checked in your code. It's a yes or no answer. Did you call, you're a project manager, did you have a one-on-one with all the people underneath you once a month? Yes or no? Not did you have a good conversation with that person once a month? No. Did you do this? And that's going to what you said. That's how you do that. You got to remove all that stuff, because if it's emotional, it's gonna fail. And you're not going to track anything. It's like you might as well say, well, I got half a squirrel. What does that even mean? I don't know, but that's what I got. I mean, I got half a squirrel. He got 2 squirrels, and he got a jelly bean. Perfect.
Yeah, so you can find a million different ways on how to, I guess you could say, do the KPIs and scorecards for employees, or how to break down your planning sessions and project management and whatnot. But the overall goal and what I was trying to come across with this topic today was, even if you are small and you are a startup, you have to have some sort of goal in mind to reach it. And in order to reach that goal, the best way to do it is to break it down into little points, little plans, little steps to start the process of hitting one and then the other, and then building from there and moving forward.
This is a whole nother podcast. We could talk about this, but one thing to keep in mind, it's probably worth Googling and whatever, but make sure some of your things you're tracking are proactive and some are reactive, right? Like a classic example is your revenue. Your revenue is reactive, right? It happened already. It's in the past. You've already earned or did not earn that money. Proactive would be something like, how many leads are in the pipeline, right? That's in the front. That's in the future versus in the past. That's when you're talking about planning, it's worth diving into. Again, we're not going to do it right now, but if there's interest, we certainly can dive into it a little bit more. But being proactive versus reactive, you can't always be 100% proactive, but try to get some of those in there, because it makes a big difference when you're shooting for the future rather than looking at the past.
All right, so before we go, today is Halloween. So I thought I would just ask real quickly, top of your head, don't put a lot of thought into it. What is your favorite scary Halloween themed movie? And I don't mean horror movie, just random ever, but there are Halloween-ish scary movies.
I don't like scary movies. So I'm going to be
Well, they don't have to be actually scary to you. It could just be a movie that's supposed to be scary that you found funny or entertaining.
We saw Hocus Pocus for the first time last year. The original.
I still have not seen Hocus Pocus or Hocus Pocus 2. My family watched the second one.
It's one of those movies I think you had to see in the moment, because to me it's just stupid. It's like my son watching Star Wars, right? The old Star Wars from the 70s. This is stupid, Dad. This looks horrible. Why is this so famous?
You should kick him out.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't see that as a child, and when you can now have Marvel movies, it doesn't work. Hocus Pocus is very similar.
That's 100% true.
I will tell you the movie, and this is a scary movie that left an indelible impression. I think I said that word right. Poltergeist, as a child, absolutely messed me up.
I could see days. That. Yep.
Yeah. That was, I think it was on like regular TV. I'm not even sure how I saw it, because we didn't have cable. I don't even know how I saw it, but I saw it at my house. And oh my gosh, like even this, I mean, I'm sure if I watched it now, it would be super cheesy. But like even the scene where the tree is eating the kid, I can't even remember. It's not even gory. It's just horrible, because I'm a kid and there's trees.
Yeah, because one of the movies that actually scared me when I was younger was Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one.
Okay.
And we watched that with my teenage daughters a couple months ago, and they were cracking up laughing the whole time, and how bad it was, how cheap budget, and just the horrible acting and the props and everything being so stupid that we were all laughing at it, of course. So that's one that actually scared me when I was a kid. But there was one that me and my brother used to watch that was more funny than scary, and it's a typical 80s like just horrible movie that I think might have a cult following for being really bad, but it was called Monster Squad.
Oh, dude, I remember that. Yes.
It was a crew of like middle school kids on their bikes fighting all
Frankenstein.
all the Halloween monsters like Dracula.
Frankenstein was a good guy in that movie.
The Mummy, protecting their town from all these like storybook monsters.
That was bad.
It was pretty cheesy, but it's pretty funny at the same time.
Oh man, I forgot about that movie. Wow, I do remember that one though.
Frankenstein was the good guy. I think of that movie. Yeah.
Oh, how funny!
It was like the Spaceballs of Halloween movies.
I can see that.
We referenced Spaceballs earlier. All
right. My wife, when we were dating, I think that's right. We were not married. I took her. We were with a big group of people, and we saw Starship Troopers, which is just, if you've ever, it's a cult, stupid, cheesy sci-fi movie, but it is over the top and gory. At the time, it was just crazy gory. And my wife held that over my head for at least a decade. You took me to Starship Troopers. And
was she upset about it? Or?
Oh, yeah. Too gory. Okay. I've already mentioned she doesn't like anything sci-fi, right? So it was like all the strikes.
Bodily function humor either.
All the strikes. And so I watched it like a year ago, 2 years ago. It was on Netflix or whatever. It is so, like, what was gory and stuff, that's what it reminded me of. So bad. Just rubber body parts, like, don't move right. They're just flopping around. And so bad. But at the time, it was like, oh, this is too much. This is too much. But you watch it again, it's just so bad. But
yeah, there was a scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where there's no way I'm spoiling this for anybody. But
it's like 30 years
fell
old.
asleep in class, and in their dream, they see Freddy Krueger dragging a body in a plastic body bag down the hall. So they get up and go, follow this trail of blood down the hall. And then just seeing that image of the bag being dragged across and then a trail of blood down the hall, that freaked me out as a kid.
Oh, sure.
That one did scare me for sure.
And
I was probably too young to have watched it at the time, but those were back in the days where, like, you would rent VHS tapes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my dad rented it or whatever and might not have returned it the next day, got home from school early, put it in and watched it before he got home.
Nice. So, yeah. That's
not good.
I think a good horror movie, and I'm not a horror person, but a good scary movie, if you use the practical stuff, it's what you don't see is the really scary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you're implying something bad.
Yeah.
Like Alfred Hitchcock was the classic example of that. It's like, we're not showing you anything, but something bad's happening here. and you just leave it up to their imagination. And that's way more effective than 80s prosthetics. Anyway. All right. We are out of time. Once again,
we're out of here.
Oh, nice. Out of time, out of here. Bye-bye.
If you want to make any comments or you want to bring up any topics for us to talk about, you can always email us, hello@thebigpixel.net. You can check us out on any of the social media channels. We're on all of them, even TikTok. Or you could leave a comment below this YouTube video. Don't tell David.
Oh, all right, fine. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Your dance is going to go viral, so that's
it should.
The camera falling today.
The camera falling should definitely go viral. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good one.